Hello and welcome, everybody. We are just a few minutes late. We have a time zone thing going on. And so I'm glad that you waited. If you're here live with us today, I have a fabulous guest. Her name is Bethany Joy, and she is the perfect guest for today because our topic is on joy. And joy is an interesting thing because a lot of people think joy will come if something happens, but really joy comes because we choose to experience it and we choose to maybe dig down deep inside ourselves for it. But before I say any more about joy, I want to introduce you to Bethany. Bethany was raised in upstate New York in a very religious family, and growing up, she had a deep love for God. But she always felt something was off and from what she was being taught. So she had some mystical experiences at an early age in which she was shown that God is much greater than any holy book or lineage. So at age 19, she began to explore different spiritual paths and teachings. She was disillusioned with the greed of the United States, and she spent portions of the next decade working in Nicaragua in orphanages, which I think is totally amazing. At 27, Bethany was working in New York City as a professional dancer when she was introduced to the mystic and yogi and universal Kabbalah master Dr. Joseph Michael Levry, the founder of Nam Yoga. And this opened up a whole new world of truth for Bethany. Her insatiable quest for truth led her to study under yogis, shamans, and mystics around the world. Yet through it all, she was constantly guided back to her own heart, her own fountain of truth and light that we all have within us. Bethany connects deeply with the mysteries of ancient Egypt, and she has studied with adepts and masters of this lineage since 2005. She's humbled to be a student sister of Mary Magdalene, Isis, and Mother Mary. And through their guidance, she has come to understand that the energies of the Venus path, Rose lineage, and Beauty way are crucial medicine for the times that we live in. And I couldn't agree more. We all need some more of that. And she embodies the essence, and embodying the essence of this is a key in birthing our new earth. Today, Bethany leads courses, retreats, and classes for women who are seeking to live a more empowered, truth filled, and joyful life, and this brings her great joy. She is a mama to three magical children, and she currently resides in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you, Bethany, for being here with us. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Jamie. I'm good. I'm doing great. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Good, thank you. You know, I was thinking about a couple of things. One is that I think sometimes of joy as an act of resistance because there are lots of things that might ostensibly try to prevent us from feeling joy or experiencing joy. And it's certainly, if you look around us, in the world today, there are a lot of things going on that are certainly not joyful events. There are wars, there's political factions, there's a lot of infighting, and
Yes.
then there's a lot of poverty and famine. And yet, I know for a fact that even people who live in areas that are under resourced find joy. Or maybe I should say they don't find it, but they reach down inside them and they experience it because it already exists there. So I think of joy also as an act of resistance in another way, in that people who are oppressed, they can't nobody can take their joy away. And I'm thinking of the history of African Americans and particularly women, since that's my area of expertise. They found ways to access their joy in ways that nobody could take away. Racism couldn't take it away, gender discrimination couldn't take it away, or excuse me, class distinctions couldn't take it away. And
Mhm.
so I'm wondering if you have anything to say about joy as an act of resistance to kick off our conversation.
Yes, I really do. I completely agree with you. And I think that joy actually is our natural state of being. It's who we are at the core and at our essence. And so, like you were saying, in the realm of the physical world and all the suffering and atrocities that we observe and experience, to be able to hold on to our essence and our highest self and nourish it and flourish in it and also own it.
Hmm.
Because I feel like oftentimes, we feel like we should be small and we should not really show our joy because others are going through suffering. And I feel that active, like you said, the active resistance is in saying, regardless of what's happening in on this planet, I'm going to live the way that I want every human being to live.
Hmm.
I'm going
Hmm.
to live in my true essence and my true joy and my true expansion and love and beauty. And of course, we're going to go through challenging times, but coming back to that vibration again and again and again and nurturing it, and feeding it, I feel like not only is that an inspiration for others around you, but you can move into the fullness of your calling. You can serve better. You have your cup is full, so you can let it overflow and you can help others.
Yes, my cup overflows, and my cup runneth over, as the
Mhm.
Psalm 23 says. And I think about that when I do gratitude lists.
Yeah.
When I do a gratitude list, it doesn't matter if my gratitude is getting out of bed. It doesn't matter if it's about breathing or having that really great first cup of coffee in the morning. That
Mhm.
brings me joy.
Mhm.
And I think also when you were talking about the atrocities and that we can still feel joy, and that doesn't diminish other people's pain and other people's suffering, but what it does is it's that vibration you were mentioning, and the vibration is positive and full of love and goodness, and it serves our highest good. And if it's serving our highest good, it can't not do otherwise as
Yes.
it radiates out.
Mhm. Yeah, we just had the Mary Magdalene feast day, right? A
Hmm.
couple
Hmm.
days ago. And when I was doing a meditation before, because I was leading a workshop on it, I was, connecting with her and sort of asking, like, how can we be like you? Because whenever I study a
Mm.
lineage or a holy book or mentor with an ascended master, it's like I don't want to learn about it. I want to become it. I want to become that which I am studying. And so that was sort of my prayer in the meditation. How can we become Mary Magdalene at this time? And it was so clear. She's like, you hold space for everything that's happening on the planet. You
Mhm.
hold space for all the suffering and atrocities. And you have the courage to stand in opposition to the oppression
Mhm.
and speak out. And you live your highest bliss and joy at the same time,
Right, right.
which is like,
Because,
what? But
yeah, yeah.
But can you imagine, like, if we all, especially those of us that are truly here to serve
Mhm.
at this time and uplift others and assist others, like, if we could really do that, like, completely hold space and hold the vision for the other side, for where we want to see humanity go and how we want the new earth to birth, and at the same time, have the absolute courage and fearlessness to stand in the
Mhm.
face of that which is unjust
Yeah.
and be joyful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it made me think when you were talking about accessing that is part of our birthright, right?
Yes.
We are born with that. If you look at a baby,
Mhm.
babies are born ostensibly pure and happy.
Mhm.
And unless something really traumatic happens to that baby, everything is a discovery. And the toes, right? When babies first like learn about their toes, when
Yeah.
they discover their toes and they put them in their mouth, that's
Mhm.
totally joy for the baby. And I just remember watching my son grow up, and I know you have three kids, so you've got three times the joy.
Mhm.
But watching him learn to walk, watching him get his first train set, watching him, chew everything basically. He chewed
Yeah.
everything in the house, including paper. We had to like say, come on. I had one babysitter say, "Are you a goat?" But even that was joyful. It just brought a smile to my face. And you can choose negativity. You can choose to live in a problem, but
Yeah.
you can also choose to live in the solution. And that doesn't mean you don't have problems, but you
Mhm,
can choose to pivot. And that's positive intelligence teaches us that. You don't have to
mhm,
listen to the judge or any of the other saboteurs that want to really bring us down. Instead, we can follow the sage path, the path of our inner divinity that says we can have empathy and compassion and we can learn from our mistakes. And instead of thinking of them as, deal breakers or, oh my gosh, the world is going to end, we can say, no, it's not. I just learned something really valuable and now I'm going to do something else.
mhm. Yes, I completely agree. I also think, like what you said earlier about gratitude, gratitude is so tightly tied in with joy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, whenever I start to go into a grateful state, joy naturally bubbles up.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's helpful to recognize the areas that, or the activities, the people that truly are, just allow joy to fill you. I know you and I both talked about dance. Dance is one of the
Mm-hmm.
things for us.
Mm-hmm.
And just recognize that's really important self love and self care, to have those, whatever it is, if it's doing art, if it's gardening, if it's hanging out with this friend, if it's taking a bath, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, like really have those in your schedule. Because I know, I've worked with women, and for a while I'd say, what brings you joy?
Mm-hmm.
And they'd get this blank look on their face. Or
Yeah.
like, when was the last time you did something that really filled you with joy? It's like they couldn't remember. So we have to remember and actively, just like you'd want your kid to do something that they loved, or, a loved one,
Mm-hmm.
actively bring that into our schedule and into our lives.
Yeah, it's like you have to give yourself permission
Yeah.
because especially I think for women, since you mentioned women, women ostensibly are the major caregiver in the family.
Mhm,
They're the ones that make sure that, there's food in the fridge and on the table. There's make sure the kids go to camp, they make sure
mhm,
the kids get to school on time. And that isn't to say men don't participate in that, but women do the lion's share of the work in raising the children. And oftentimes, and I know it's true for me, I put my son ahead of me. And that was a really important thing to do. I need to make sure his needs are met. But now my child is a senior in high school and he's pretty independent. He has a car, he
mhm.
has friends, he has a job, and he has an Xbox in his bedroom. So I realized I don't have to worry so much about him. I can start accessing that joy that I basically deprived myself of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, especially because I worked with, um, in prenatal yoga and mommy and me yoga for a while. So especially when the kids are little and
Mm-hmm.
they're just taking so much of your life force,
Mm-hmm.
you have to fill your cup. You have to, in all in the little ways. It's not going to be the same as when they're older, but when they take the nap, instead of doing housework, or just take a few minutes and relax and lie down, or listen to something that brings that, some notice the things that give you energy instead of suck your energy, because I think for a
Yeah.
lot of us, we have downtime and then we'll be on our phones. But like for me, that sucks my energy. And I even say to my kids, like, notice what's giving you energy and what's taking your energy, just so we can be conscious of that.
Yeah, I love that. And I certainly can be guilty of saying, oh, I can do some housework now. I remember when Javi was little, I was just grateful to take a shower.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
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 And I think most women can identify. It's like, when did you get a shower? Well, as soon as I put him or her down to bed, I could hop into the shower. My kid had one of those things that I don't remember what it was called, but you put them in and they sit in it, and there's a lot of toys that they can
Oh
play
yeah.
with. And it was like, I just needed to sit him in there for sometimes just to have a moment to myself where I didn't have to worry about what was going in his mouth or whether he was going down some stairs that he didn't know how to go down yet.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I want to ask you, first of all, is your maiden name really Joy, or did you name yourself that?
So my maiden name is Bethany Joy Hard.
Mm,
My middle name was Joy. I never liked my last name.
mm-hmm,
Like I always hated it growing up.
mm-hmm.
I'd just be like, Bethany Hard, you know, I wouldn't
Yeah.
Bethany Hard. So, but then when I got married, I didn't take my ex-husband's last name. I think I just intuitively knew it wasn't going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he and I divorced, I was like, I've never liked my last name. I didn't take his. This is my life. This is my destiny. This is my name. I'm going to drop the hard and I'm going to make Joy my official last name. So I did it legally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I dropped what felt like hard karma, you know, and I was like, no, I
Yeah.
want Joy to be my full name. So yeah, that's how.
So I like it because you not only do you know how to access your joy, but you embody it and you are it, right? It's part of your identity.
Hmm.
And when you were talking earlier about how we fill our own cup, when we have a full cup, we have something to share and something to give.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think there's another, we think of joy as happiness and lightness and fun and filling you, but there's another aspect to joy. There was a time during my marriage that was really
Hmm.
hard. And I remember like being on the bed crying this one day.
Hmm.
And I kept on hearing, your joy is your strength. Your joy is your strength, which is in the Bible too, right? Your joy is your strength. I kept on hearing that. And I was like, oh, okay. And for me, I was, asking what brings me joy. And for me, it was dancing. And I had been a dancer my whole from 5 until like 27. And then I was in like the baby years. So it had been like a good decade or more than a decade that I danced.
Hmm.
And I was like, I need to dance again. And I was hearing, yes, your joy is your strength. And for me, doing that thing that I immediately knew brought me to a state of joy also gave me so much strength.
Hmm.
And I honestly think it attributed, among other things, to giving me the strength to leave that marriage. It's
Hmm.
going back into what brought me joy.
Yeah, I left a marriage as well, and it was a trade-off for me. It was, do I want to continue to be miserable or do I want to feel fearful that I'm going to be alone, right? And my fear of being alone made me stay in a marriage I wasn't happy in. And as
Mhm.
soon as I realized, you know what, life is too short to be unhappy, and as soon as I made that decision, actually, both of us were happy, right? It was time for us to part ways. And as soon as we did, I think we both were able to access our joy in different ways. You know, he
Mhm.
has his own way of accessing it, and I have mine. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is your early life as a woman raised in a very religious environment and how you took a different path and how that relates to how you became who you are today.
Yeah, so it was a very Christian home, and in some ways it was beautiful in that my parents really, in some ways they were really open because they had met in a Christian commune in California, so they were kind of like hippie, you know. But there was also like a legalistic part of it that my
Uh,
dad brought in just through his wiring or past lives or whatever. And so that part of it, the legalistic, and he was pretty oppressive, and he was pretty not it was not an easy childhood in many ways with him. He had the two sides, be very loving and very angry, and so, but in that, I observed every day, like waking up and he was reading his Bible on the couch like every morning. And he also had been a philosophy major, so we would have these really deep talks all the time.
mm-hmm,
And he introduced me to a lot of books, and he actually gave me books on mystics when I was
mm,
young.
mm-hmm,
And I remember reading them and being like, oh, I'm a mystic. Like I just knew it. There was something about the gnosis, like that it's that the presence of God or the connection that I felt was direct, and it wasn't through another person, and it wasn't through even a lineage. And I remember, and you know this from Christianity, in the Bible, it's saying we are in the world, but not of the world.
Yes.
And my parents would say that. And I'd be like, but I love the world. Like, I never had this thing of like, I don't want to be here. I hate, well, that's not true. I did in some ways for,
Mm-hmm.
for having a hard childhood, but I also like loved the earth. I loved people. I loved just living life. But with the sort of Christianity I was raised in, it was sort of like, no, you should separate yourself. Like, it's bad here. We want to go to heaven, and
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, yeah, I did separate from that in my late teens and 20s, and I was living in New York City, and my friend had been telling me about this class to go to for this yoga class. She'd be telling
Mm-hmm.
me for like 2 or 3 years, and I was like, no, I don't do yoga. I'm a dancer. And then one day I literally heard it is time. It's time. It
Mm.
was a Wednesday night. It was this Wednesday night master class. So I went to this class, and it was it was Dr. Joseph Michael Levry, and it was he's a Kabbalist and a yogi, and it would just like blew me open. I cried like 80% of the class. It was so heart opening. There were probably like 100 people there, and I remember feeling palpably like the presence of Shekinah, or what Christians would call the Holy Spirit. It
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
so thick, and I was like, oh, because I had been looking for spiritual community, but I didn't want to go to church.
Right.
So I did find it in that vein, but then I moved to Nicaragua and life, and then moved to Nashville, and but I still stayed connected. But that was the opening for me of feeling this deep spiritual connection. And he's universal Kabbalah, so it's not connected with a religion at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so that was sort of the journey that I took. And then the past few years, what has come in so strong for me is the Isis Magdalene Rose lineage.
Mm.
Yeah. And so that is the path that feels like I've traveled many, many lifetimes. It feels like everything else has been preparing me for this. It feels like my dharma or my service to the planet is specifically through that vibration,
Yeah.
which really does tie into joy, because in the Venus vibration is one of beauty and pleasure and love and joy and connection and abundance and creation. So, we have all of these different paths that we can take that I think lead to the same place, that lead to source.
Mm-hmm.
This specific path is one of being fully human and fully divine and fully relishing in the human experience as well. Like enjoying all of the senses, enjoying everything life has to give us as humans, being like, oh, I chose to be human. Like, I'm not an angel. I'm not a
Yeah.
fairy.
Right.
I'm not in another realm. I am
Mm-hmm.
human. Let me
Mm-hmm.
fully, fully, fully indulge in everything of the human experience and all the highs and lows. And it's holy. It's just as holy as sitting and meditating or working in the orphanage like I did for 10 years?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that is, and it ties back to what you were saying about being revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
Like being able to embody that existence isn't that a vibration that we would like to see the whole planet living in?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
So I do feel like I embody that. I teach that. I help others bring more of that into their life. And joy is not only what we're talking about, like your happiness and your strength, but I feel it's directly, directly, directly connected to your life purpose and your life mission.
I agree. I agree. There's so much that you said there. I wish we had more time. We have a little bit of time, but I wanted to comment on a couple things about mysticism. I've had mystical experiences too, and I've studied the mystics. I went to divinity school, so it sort of was par for the course. And I think people might think, oh, mysticism is for Julian of Norwich or Catherine of Siena or something like that. But actually, we can have these mystical experiences right here in the everyday. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to, live in the medieval era, and you don't have to, anchor yourself to a church. But I also have felt the presence of the Holy Spirit literally enter my body in the most physical way possible. And I am clairaudio, so I hear voices that tell me what to do. You're going to divinity school. You're going to go
Mhm.
help women. You don't need a collar. I thought I was going to be a priest one day, and it turned out I'm not. And I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you for saving me from myself. But I was a churchgoer, and I stopped going to church because I found that I had a spiritual connection that was directly related to my sense of the divine, and that has that has proven to be really helpful to me, and that's kind of the energy that I bring to my interaction. So joy is in the everyday. The other thing, and this is really important, being happy is a feeling, joy is a state.
Mm,
Joy is a state. I
I like that.
when I'm in joy and when I'm in myself, I'm happy. But I can be happy for a moment, like, oh, I'm so happy it's sunny and I can go to the beach. Joy is so much deeper
Mm,
and permanent
mhm.
than that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
it's
want
who
to,
we are.
yeah, exactly. And that's our
Mhm.
birthright. So that is who we are. And we get to claim it and say, yeah, that is mine. That's mine. I get joy. And, maybe you don't want to take dance lessons, but maybe you want to do something else. And,
Mhm.
I want to read Frederick Buechner is one of my favorite theologians. And here's a very short snippet of a longer thing that he said. And he said, and of course, I get with these pop up ads, vocation is the place where your deep gladness meets the world's deep need.
Mm,
And I love that because I found
yes.
that that's, I thought vocation was something I had to go get. But when I realized it was what brings me joy, where my joy is, and when I can be in that joy, whatever I'm doing is infectious,
Mm,
and it's typically a need that the world, has that we can meet.
totally agree. I love that quote. That's great.
I'll put a link to it in the show notes, and I'll send it to you as well, because there's more to it than that. That's just a small piece of what he talks about vocation. Um, Gosh, there were so many other things. One thing I wanted to say too is a lot of people, we talked about this at the beginning, there's a lot of sadness and despair in the world. And I think people are really feeling it now with the election coming up in the United States, the wars that are going on. And we don't, that doesn't have to diminish how we go about our lives. And it doesn't mean that when we're in joy, it's not toxic positivity,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's not that, oh, everything's fine, everything's happy. No, everything's not fine,
Yeah,
right? Everything's not fine. But as you said earlier, when we're in joy, when we're in our joy, we can spread that, and it's infectious. It's
yeah.
contagious.
Can I say one thing on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that's really helped me when things feel overwhelming, like
Mm-hmm.
in the world or in your personal life or suffering with others, is to ask, what is my role?
Mm.
What is my role?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we truly understand, know ourselves and know what our role is in this situation that just feels, you feel impotent, and take advantage, for example, the war that's going on in
Mm-hmm.
the Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
and asking how, like, what is my role? Is my role to educate? Is my role to pray? Is my role to support financially? Is my role to be on the ground serving? Like, what is it? And when you can tap into that and go
Mm-hmm.
into that,
Mm-hmm.
not only are you, like, your precious life force, your finite precious life force is channeled exactly in the way that it can go to help that situation, but you don't become overwhelmed with it, and like, what do I do, what's happening in the world? It's like, ask, what is my role, what is my role, and then fulfill your role, and know that, do not be shamed by others by not fulfilling their role.
Yeah. Right. And we all do have a role. And I often ask my spirit guides, what what should I be doing today? And please lead me. And
Yeah.
please also help me listen, because sometimes the noise in my head prevents me from actually really listening to
Mhm.
what I'm called to do.
Agreed.
Yeah, yeah. So we're out of time, but I do want to play a short snippet. And this is something I often do at the end of the podcast. So let me share my screen. I don't know. Window? Oh, here we go.
Should we be hearing it too?
You're not hearing it? Okay, you didn't hear it? Okay, so oh well. It'll be in the recorded version that will be
Okay.
uploaded later. But it was "Joy to the World" by Three Dog
Oh,
Night,
yay.
and I
Yes.
guess I'm still in this technologically challenged mode sometimes. But Bethany, thank you so much for coming on, and especially at the last minute when we had a time zone miscommunication. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for sharing this message.
Yeah,
It's so
absolutely. And
important.
we will continue to share it. So if you're watching this podcast or listening, please share it with your friends and spread that joy.
Thank you.
And if you want to know more about joy and emotional intelligence and positive intelligence, please subscribe to this channel and please come and see me. And as I said, my information and Bethany's information will be in the show notes. And until next time, God bless you and may you experience your joy.
Amen.
Amen. Bye.